Welcome to the Adult Family Home Admin class. We're going to be discussing Module 6 so that we can prepare you for your initial inspection preparation checklist. Okay, so in this module, we're going to go through Module 6, setting up your home and getting ready for that initial inspection. All right, so using the Adult Family Home Initial Inspection Preparation Checklist will help you ensure that you've met all of the requirements for the checklist. And if you do, then you will not need a second licensing visit. Since on site initial inspection usually takes anywhere from 3 to 5 hours, the home needs to be in move-in ready on the day of the initial inspection. You should only schedule your initial inspection when you're sure that your home meets all of the licensing requirements, okay? So the initial inspection preparation, let me call it what they say it is. It's the Adult Family Home Initial Inspection Preparation Checklist is your best friend to do this. So it talks about everything, uh, including the home records, making sure that you get them set up and ensure that everything that is needed in them is correct, as well as that the mandatory postings are hung in your adult family home, and other items such as dishes and appliances and all of the rest of your adult family home is set up for inspection. Just know that there are strict regulations about video and audio recording, and therefore your home needs to be in good condition, neat and clean on the day of inspection. So let's go ahead and look at the first slide. Okay. So the Analt Family Home Initial Inspection Preparation Checklist is going to be one of the first things that we work through. And then we'll talk about all of the records that you need for your adult family home. We'll talk about the option of electronic record keeping using a management program such as SyncWise or the Adult Family Home Connection. We talk about resident photographs and violation of the privacy of your residents. We'll talk about video recording and notification, as well as when you can record audio in your adult family home. So at the end of this module, you'll be able to discuss the requirements for setting up your home, explain what postings are required and where they must be located, describe how to protect your residents from water hazards, and then identify the exterior physical environment requirements for each of your adult family homes, okay? So before we begin each module, we do a simple what do you know quiz, right? It's just true or false questions so that we know that you understand uh, what you know and what you understand prior to the start of the module. So, true or false, all required workplace posters are free. True. Okay. Each bedroom must have adequate storage space for clothing and personal belongings, true or false? And that is true. And then the adult family home checklist is designed to assist the applicant in preparing for the initial inspection. And that is true as well. Okay. So the checklist for your initial inspection is listed in your manual. Okay, so take a look at Module 6, page 1. And what you're going to do is you're going to need to read through the entire list. And then when you're ready to check your home, be sure that you're using the most current checklist. So you want to download the most current one from online. The checklist is your best friend, so you need to be sure to understand what it says. You need to open and read the WACs so that you exactly understand what the WACs are requiring. And then if you can meet all of the requirements on the checklist, then you're ready to go. I can't stress enough, do not schedule your inspection until you are sure that you meet all of the minimum licensing requirements. Your home should be ready for a resident to move in at any time when the inspector comes out to do the inspection. And then we'll go through the checklist together, section by section, so that you are ready to go. All right. So go ahead and turn to page 2 in the manual for the required postings tables. So in your adult family home, you need to have a place that you're able to post all of the required postings. What we did is we got two bulletin boards that we posted in the hallway. Makes it easy for people to find. It's readily available to the public to see at all times. And we just post everything there and then update as needed. Like every year when we get our new license, or when our business license is renewed, or our insurance statement is due, we get that and we replace it on our bulletin board. So on page 2 of your manual, that will list all of the postings that are initially required. So if you hired staff, you're also going to need to display posters from several additional state agencies, and we'll cover those in Module 11, hiring staff. So um, Number 4, the complaint and inspection reports. You need to have a binder that is labeled and visible, even though it's going to be empty when you first start. And you're going to include a statement on your board that will say that additional reports available from the last 3 years are available upon request. And then number 5 is right there as well. And then in order to help you with your emergency, you want to see WAC 388 76 10 885, which will help you in an emergency. Okay. So if you hold on just a second, I will open up uh, uh, what our boards look like. And so it'll help easily show you what you need to expect to have. Okay. All right, so this is bulletin board number 1. This is bulletin board number 2. And so as you can see here, we have our adult family home license, we have our business license, all of our home care aid certifications are listed there as well. We have our emergency evacuation floor plan. We have our emergency disaster plan phone numbers. We have all of the phone numbers for DSHS and DDA administration. We have a copy of our insurance and liability insurance form, and then our notice for abuse and neglect form as well. We then, on the other one, have our disability rights poster of Washington, our ombudsman pamphlet. Actually, there's two, this one up here and this one down here. We have the current annual inspection and complaint reports can be found on the console table by the laundry room, and then the annual inspection and complaint reports for the last 3 years are available upon request. And then we have the emergency phone numbers, including contacts for Red Cross, the SHS licensor, the complaint hotline, the delegator nurse, the case manager, the assessor, the ombudsman, the adult family home telephone number, and all of that. Down here is our employee posters, right? And then on the console table next to the laundry room, we have an acrylic stand that has our current inspection and uh, current complaint reports that they can grab at their leisure. So it just makes it easy, simple, and it meets all of the requirements that DSHS has. All right. And so if we go through, we have the CRU hotline. I showed you that. That was that yellow piece of paper. The Washington State Ombudsman folder, the Disability of Rights Washington poster, the complaint inspections for the 12 months and the last 3 years, our business license, and then the evacuation plan for each level of the adult family home. if you noticed on that board, the emergency evacuation is what we used for the for each level of the home. We have a separate drawing. The one I showed you was the main adult family home, uh, floor one, where all of the residents and the adult family home is located. Floor two is where our apartment is, and we have a different one upstairs for that. And then in the basement, where my office is, and the home systems room is, we have a separate drawing for that as well. So you need to have one of those for each of those areas. All right. Next, um, you will also need to have the common areas checklist set up. And so all of the common areas must be home-like with furnishings that the resident may use. Needs to be large enough for all of the residents to use at the same time. Enough chairs and for the dining room table and enough seats in the living room. Including outside, if you have a seating area outside, you need to have a place for all of your residents to sit there at the same time. The common areas must not be used as a bedroom or a sleeping area, either for your residents or for your caregiver. The lighting must be adequate in all areas, and there shouldn't be a burnt out light bulb. You should change all of those. And then your fireplace needs to be secured with a sturdy flame resistant barrier or not used and disabled. Okay. Your bedrooms. Your residence privacy needs to be maintained, therefore, you need to have curtains or blinds on the windows. The bedroom door needs to close securely and it needs to provide both audio and visual privacy. It needs to be an outside room that allows natural light and must have direct access to hallways and corridors and unrestricted access to common use areas. And all bedrooms must have a window or a door that leads directly to the outside that allows for emergency evacuation. So that doesn't mean that you need to have an exit door outside of the home in each of the bedroom, just that it goes into the hallway. So in the hallway, you're able to evacuate using the regular evacuation door. Each room needs to meet minimal floor space. That is, for a single resident, it needs to be 80 usable square feet and 120 usable square feet if you have a shared room for two residents. The door width is a minimum of 27 inches. Remember, your adult family home needs to meet the International Building Code or Residential Code, not the International Building Code or the Americans with Disabilities Act. In the building code and the ADA, it needs to be like 32 or 36 inches. So we do not need a door that wide. You need to have a place for them to store clothing and personal belongings. If you do not have a closet, then you need to have a wardrobe, and both the closet and the wardrobe needs to be subtracted from the usable square footage. If there is a door, it needs to be easily openable from both inside and out, even if it is locked, meaning that if you do have a door lock, you need to have the key available to it, readily available for the caregivers to open it in an emergency. And also, the sweep of the door needs to be removed from the usable square footage as well. A slider door must allow space when closed to get the fingers into the space to allow it to be opened from either the inside or the outside, or use grasp handles inside and outside of each slider door. Typically, the slider doors are used for closets, and so the best way to meet that requirement is to either put one of those pucks for the fingers on the inside of the door, or go ahead and put a rubber bumper to prevent the door from closing 100%. It leaves usually a half inch open so that somebody can put their fingers in there to open up the door. All right. The next one is adequate lighting. Again, you do need to have adequate lighting in all of your bedrooms and make sure that none of the bulbs are burnt out. You need to have rapid access for the staff in an emergency, like I mentioned. And then the windows must not be blocked, and it needs to be easily opened, and it needs to have a screen. You also must have a minimum opening of 5.7 square feet. That means either a minimum height of 24 inches or a minimum opening of 20 inches. Just note that the 24 by 20 will only result in 3.3 square foot opening, and it will not meet the minimum requirement of 5.7 or 5 square foot opening. So just know that if you have a height of 24 inches, you're going to need to have enough minimum opening in order to meet that 5.7 square feet. In the bathrooms, you need to have the grab bars installed correctly. That means installed on either a block that are that are on the inside of the walls or screwed into the one of the studs. Okay, it just can't be on the drywall. You need to be able to have someone of 250 pounds to use that to lift up out of the shower or lift up out of the tub. So you need to have it meet that 250-pound requirement. The local building official will be solely responsible for measuring the placement of the toilet and the tub and shower grab bars, but the inspector that is going to be doing your licensing will verify. RCS initial inspection licensure will also be ensuring that the grab bars are installed safely and securely. And the licensor will also inspect and address any safety issues, such as a toilet or a shower or tub requiring additional grab bars to ensure safety. Bathroom vanity doors must not block the door when they are open. So if you'll see here, this picture shows that the door is closed and locked, and then the vanity door is opened, blocking the door. So you need to make sure that they do not use these drawers for safety. All right. Every toilet must have a toilet paper holder in your bathrooms. Okay. So, bathroom access, you need to be able to access a toilet, a shower tub without going through another resident's bedroom. That means that if you do offer a master bedroom, the ensuite bath, for a resident, that can only be used by the resident or residents that live in that bathroom. It cannot be a general bathroom used for all of the other residents of the home. And you need to have one flushing toilet per 5 people. This counts all people living in the home, including your residents, the applicant, and the applicant's family, caregiver, etc. You need to have 2 flushing toilets if there is a capacity of more than 5 residents and access is without going through a person's room. All right. Your bathroom needs to have visual and auditory privacy. There can't be any gaps at the door, and privacy coverings or glass at the windows so that they do have the privacy. Again, you need to have adequate lighting. The water temperature cannot be less than 105 degrees, nor can it exceed 120 degrees. And the bathroom must be free from toxins. That means you are not able to leave any cleaning products in the bathroom that a resident may use and get contaminated or drink or anything like that. Okay. So have a central area that is for all of your cleaning products and keep them there. So next is the kitchen and laundry areas. If you have to pass through the kitchen to do the laundry, you must have a written infection control plan. Your kitchen must be stocked on the date of inspection with pots, pans, dishes, silverware, and glasses. And it should be stocked as if the residents were moving in on inspection day. And then You also need to make sure that the kitchen and laundry areas are clean and sanitary. The sink temperature, the water at the sink needs to be le less than 120 degrees and more than 105 degrees, and lighting must be adequate with no burnt out bulbs. I do recommend that you have a digital thermometer. An instant read digital thermometer is what your inspector will check your water temperatures with. And so you want to check everywhere in your home to make sure that it is between 105 degrees and 120 degrees. Next is medications. You need to have a place to secure all of your medications in your home. It can be located in your kitchen, it can be located in a drug room if you have an area specifically for that, or in your office. And in that, you need to have a secured cabinet where you're going to ensure that all prescribed and over the counter and refrigerated medications are kept in locked storage. Make sure that all resident medications are kept separate from each other. Don't intermix all of your different residents. And it also needs to be in place on the day of inspection, including how your refrigerated medications are going to be stored. So you can have a mounted refrigerator storage, or you can just have a medication box that you put into the refrigerator. What we did is we took one of our cabinets in our kitchen and we put a lock on it, a key-based lock, and then each one of our residents has one of those plastic shoe containers, like it's about the size of a shoebox, and each resident keeps all of their medications in there. If you have a resident that has a lot of different medications, just go ahead and have more than one box for each of your residents, okay? Other things that you need to ensure is electronic monitoring equipment. Make sure to review the wax carefully. Strict regulations apply. Security style cameras can be utilized at entrances and exits of the home, but it may not show the view of any resident gathering area at the initial time of inspection. Okay. So if you have a Ring doorbell, you cannot uh, use the audio portion, but you can use the video portion, and you cannot record it. Okay. You can also have a call bell system, or if your caregiver's bedroom is not within hearing distance of your residents' bedrooms, then you need to have a call bell system where your residents can call the caregivers for required care or services. That can be one to where beeper is worn on the caregiver's uniforms and kept with them, or it can be as something as simple as a push button next to the bed in each resident's bedroom that sets off an alarm in the sleeping area, which is what we have. We have a system that has 6 different bell push buttons, and each of our residents have one in their bedrooms, and each ring of the bell will ring the system in our bedroom, flashing a different colored light and a different colored or a different audio for each resident. Okay. That way we can figure out which resident needs assistance. If you have hazardous materials in your garage, you need to make sure that you have a plan to keep your residents safe from these hazards. And then a smoke detector must be installed on each level of the home, in each resident's bedroom, and then in the proximity to where the staff sleeps as well. They all must be interconnected, and it will be tested during your inspection. They will press the test button on the smoke detector and want to make sure that it sounds throughout your house. Space heaters must be certified by an organization listed as a nationally organized testing laboratory. If you have the cadet mounted wall mounted heaters, you need to follow manufacturer's instructions and safety information. If the heating unit is hot to the touch, the surface that is hot will need to be made inaccessible to the residents so they don't get themselves burnt. The same with baseboard heaters. If it is hot to the touch, it may pose a burn risk to the residents, so you need to make sure that they're not able to burn themselves on it. The water temperature in all bathrooms and in the kitchen and the laundry room all need to be between 105 degrees and 120 degrees. Your room temperatures need to be at least 68 degrees Fahrenheit during waking hours and not less than 60 degrees Fahrenheit at night. Telephone for your residents to use in private must be activated and in service at the time of inspection. It does not need to be a landline. It can be a cell phone or an internet phone or anything like that. But if it is a cell phone, it cannot be your cell phone. It needs to be a cell phone that is uh, independent strictly for the house. All toxic substances that are accessible to residents only under direct supervision. So any toxic substance would be anything with a warning label such as keep out of reach of children or poison or toxin label. And then all windows will need to be opened or that can be opened must have screens to prevent flies and bugs from entering the home when the window is open. Next is your main entrance and exit door must have a lever handle that unlocks inside and outside mechanisms at the same time. It opens the door from the inside of the house with a single press of the lever handle and allows for re-entry using without the use of a key, a tool, or special knowledge. The door must also have a lever handle on the outside. So these doors are called interconnected door latches. And if you watch the video in Canvas, it will show you exactly what it means to have an interconnected doorknob. Basically, once your deadbolt is locked, just by a sweep of the lever, it will automatically unlock the door and open the door at the same time. Okay. Your stairs and steps that are utilized by residents must have handrails on both sides, extending the full length of the steps or stairs. If stairs will not be utilized by the residents, you must show on the day of inspection how you plan to make the steps inaccessible to the residents. Ramps must have a safe slope of 8.3% or less. Needs to have graspable handrails from both sides extending the full length of the ramp. There needs to be a 3-foot landing at the top and bottom or any change of directions. And you need to have a safe slope that also has a non-slip surface. Also, your landing cannot exceed a 2% slope, meaning it should be as level as possible. Again, the local building official will be responsible for measuring the ramp and landing slopes, but the initial inspection licensor will be responsible for ensuring that all ramps have graspable handrails that extend the full length of the ramp slope and that they are securely installed. Licensor will also inspect and address any safety issues such as uneven or abrupt edges and drop-off areas that may pose a trip or a fall risk to the residents. Doorways must have a smooth transition on the bottom of the door threshold to maintain a safe non-trip hazard. And then if you have a deck, it must have a safe non-slip surface. There needs to be sturdy barriers as required, and edges cannot be a trip hazard. Okay. Safe areas outdoor for residents. So it needs to be free of hazards and toxic materials. So if you have any hazards or toxic materials, you need to make sure and lock them up, probably in the garage or someplace. And you also need to be on the lookout for busy roads, trip hazards, yard tools, chemicals, etc., and make sure that they are not accessible to the residents. Your outdoor area needs to be large enough to accommodate all residents at the same time. If you feel that it's not, just don't put furniture there and you'll be fine. If you have water hazards, water hazard is basically anything that is water of any depth at the home, or even if you have just standing water after a rain, that can be a water hazard as well. So you need to show how you can accompany or escort residents to other locations to make sure that they are not uh, hindered by any water hazards or bodies of water at any time. If you have water features that are 24 inches deep, they must be enclosed by a fence and a gate at least 48 inches high, needs to be equipped with an audible alarm that sounds when any door, screen, or gate that leads directly outside or surrounds the water hazard um, when it's opened. And then it needs to be securely locked. The doors, screens, and gates that lead to the areas surrounding the water hazards need to be locked. Road safety: if your home is located on a busy street, you must be able to demonstrate a plan to ensure residents' safety. Drop off areas: if your residents will have access to any areas that has a drop off, such as a rock wall, you need to have a barrier in place to prevent residents from accessing the fall hazard. Your yard needs to be well maintained. The outdoor buildings will need to be assessed to ensure safety. And then if you have window wells, such as the one in the slide, um, you need to ensure that they have the ability to exit the room if it is a window well at a resident's bedroom. Okay. Next, we take a look at this ramp, try to determine what could possibly be wrong with it. The first thing that I notice is it does not have any graspable handrails on both sides. The landing at the top does not look to be 3 foot by 3 foot, and there's also a lot of stuff on the landing and the entryway, making it difficult to move around and enter through the door. The surface looks like it'd be slippery if it was wet or icy. And then the slope looks pretty steep, so you'd have to measure to make sure that that slope meets our requirements. And so just be aware of all of that when you are having a ramp built. Okay. So now we get into the portion of the checklist that talks about sample residents. Okay. So you need to have your resident records in a place where you can maintain confidentiality. So that means that you need to make sure that it is accessible to other caregivers, but it cannot be looked at by other people that are not authorized to do it. Resident record format. So during the initial inspection, you're going to be required to demonstrate that you have a location to house all of the required documents, such as a binder or a filing cabinet or a file, or even online, it can be a electronic filing system. The records required at inspection are going to be the personal inventory sheet. You need to have a blank document if you do not have any residents when you are going to be inspected. You need to have a blank document in a binder to show that you have it set up. So you'll want to have the personal inventory sheet, the residence information sheet, or the face sheet, the disclosure of charges, and then a medication log. And so there's going to be more information about the records here shortly, okay? Um, Other documents that are required to be in the resident record, it's going to be uh, your medication log we talked about, the inventory sheet we talked about. You're also going to need to have a place for a residence assessment, the nurse delegation documentation, the face sheet we talked about, the medical professional orders, the primary service plan, or preliminary service plan, I should say, the disclosure of charges, the financial record keeping document, your legal documents such as guardianship or power of attorney, and then the negotiated care plan also needs to be in the binder and ready to go. All right. You'll also need to have a orientation checklist So when these are the administrative records, so you need to have a manual for that. So when you have a staff member come in, you need to make sure that they follow the orientation checklist. This is the checklist that you're going to use to orient new staff to the specific processes and requirements for the home. Note that this is not a checklist of all the staff training. This is a checklist of everything they need to know when they start work. You need to have the caregiver qualifications, so you want to have a process or a system to ensure that your employees meet the caregiver qualifications, including first aid CPR. You're going to need to have the disclosure of charges form. So you're going to have that form and you're going to provide a copy to each resident when they are admitted to the home. If you have any pets that live in or visit the home on a regular basis, you need to have proof of updated rabies vaccination required. If you have a sewage system and a water system, you need to make sure that if it is a septic tank, you need to have the inspection and the certification by the health department for your water if it's well. Also, you need to have a respiratory protection program. This is a written program that is a plan for how you will provide respiratory protection for your employees at your facilities. It helps you identify the procedures for your facilities to follow in providing proper respiratory protection, medical evaluations, respiratory training, respirator fit testing, etc. All meet the WAC 296 842 12,005 for details about the written respiratory protection program. All right. Then we get to the policies and procedures. So the licensor are going to look for these policies. And so you need to make sure that you have your rights and services document. We did that in assignment 2. Your disaster plan is assignment 4. The medication disposal document, contacting emergency services is part of assignment 2. Accepting Medicaid is assignment 2. Prevention of abandonment, abuse, and neglect is uh, number 4. The accident injury incident log, your emergency evacuation drill log, and your medication logs are also required to be available. The next checklist is your emergency disaster plan procedures. We're going to be talking about that in Module 6A. So you're going to need to create a disaster plan and procedures in order to respond to natural and man-made emergencies and disasters that outline the actions to be taken by staff and residents in the event of an emergency or a disaster. And then also you will have plans for fire drill and evacuation. Next, you're going to have your checklist of resources that are available. These are things such as, let's see, your WACS 38876, the minimum licensing requirements. WAC 388112A is your training. WAC 246840, which is the nurse delegation. 38810500050 is your Medicaid supplementation. And then it goes into your RCWs for the adult family home, resident rights, abuse of vulnerable adults, background check information, emergency planning information, your caregiving experience attestation forms for the entity representative and resident managers, and then your training requirements for the adult family home in general, your food training, that's the food handlers card, finding community educators in your area, your emergency or the administrator training class, which we're in now, and the AFH providers minimum instruction requirements. So the links are also on page 16 in your manual, okay? So now we get into the records that you're going to need to have and to show to your uh, licensor. So all of the records must be set up prior to inspection. You're going to need to have a binder for the resident. You're going to need to have your administrative records, the employee records, including the employee handbook, your AFH provider checklist, and policy and procedures, and then your complaint and inspection reports. So you're going to need to have a binder for all of those. So if for our house we have this document, or these are what we have our binders set up for. So we have residence permanent chart and then the residence daily record keeping. We have our employee handbook, the policy and procedures, the adult family home guidebook, the disaster response plan, and the AFH checklist. So all of those are what we have for our adult family home. And each of our 5 residents have a distinct set of residence manuals. Okay. These are all color coded, and each of our residents have color coded as well, so that it makes it easier for us to figure out exactly who we are working with and making sure that we have the correct resident, or the correct documents for the correct resident. So resident records confidentiality. Again, you need to make sure you need to prevent unauthorized usage. Only these individuals are authorized access to the resident records. DSHS as the department, a healthcare institution, anybody that is required by law or requested by law, you need to be able to show them the resident records. The resident themselves have access to the resident's records. Your staff, basically anybody that needs to provide care and services to the resident. The long-term care ombudsman, if they meet the requirements and it is granted by the residents themselves, and then anyone that the resident or the resident's legal representative authorizes can have access to the resident's records based on confidentiality. They must be stored in a location that is accessible to those that are providing care. It also needs to be kept in the home where the resident lives. If you have a separate office, let's say you have 2 or 3 adult family homes, the records cannot be kept in the office. They need to be kept in the home where the resident lives. Needs to be identifiable so that you get the right record for the right resident. The format must be useful to the home, and it needs to be confidentially stored for 3 years. Okay. Next is needs to maintain the resident information, or the face sheet, the personal belongings inventory, and we have the families update that every year. We have the assessment and the preliminary care plan and the negotiated care plan. We make sure that the current medical history is stored in the resident records, the medication logs, or the MAR. What we do is we have a MAR book for each of our residents. We have a MAR book for all of the residents at the same time. And then at the end of the quarter or the end of the year, we take them from the MAR and put it in the resident's permanent records. The nurse delegation document, if the resident is receiving nurse delegation. All legal documents such as guardianship, power of attorney, or durable power of attorney. Financial records if you manage the resident's funds. In our case, we manage petty cash of up to $100. Disclosure of charges form. You need to make sure that you have the one that they signed when they moved in. And then all of the admission records needs to be in the residence records as well. You can have electronic record keeping um, as long as they are accessible to all the staff who needs them. And it needs to be able to maintain the confidentiality and then print them out if it is requested by the RCS licensor. So electronic record keeping can be the Synkwise or the adult family home electronic manual that you can purchase and use. They have them up on the Adult Family Home Council's website. You just go to vendors or partners of the Adult Family Home Council, and you can see them there. The next is sample of the resident records. So as you can see on the side is all of the different records that are listed. And in your manual, you can see on page 19 through 30, all of those that are uh, listed there. Okay, let me double check and make sure that it is the right, yeah, page 6.19 through 6.30. So you can go through there and see all of the records that are there. Okay. Next are staff records. These are records that are for your staff. So the administrator records need to be there as well, and it needs to be accessible to the DSHS department staff. Needs to also be available during staff employment. So everybody, um, all staff that are in your adult family home, you need to have all of their information in your staff records, and it needs to be kept in a safe place that is readily accessible and must be available during the staff's employment and for at least 2 years following employment after they leave. So it will document all of the caregiver qualifications, the orientation checklist, the address and contact information, the orientation and training records, your TB test results, as well as the background check. And then you need to also have for your administrative records, you need to have for each adult family home your evacuation drills, your accident injury log, your policies and procedure, your disaster plans, notice of rights and services requirements, your liability insurance, and the respiratory protection program all needs to be in the administrative manuals. Okay, you can see on page 32 and 33 for samples of the records. Then we talk about resident photographs and video recording. A resident has the right to personal privacy, so you cannot just take pictures of your residents and post them on social media or use them for marketing purposes or anything without uh, ensuring that you have permission to do so. Okay. What we do is we have, when a resident comes into the adult family home, we have a photograph slash video recording permission slip that they sign, and then they sign it every year during their when we come in and do the negotiated care plan, and when they do the update to the personal inventory. Also, CMS, Centers for Medicaid Services, sent out a stern reminder about protecting residents' privacy and prohibiting mental abuse. Therefore, you need to have written authorization from the resident and or their representative. The WAC allows for very few exceptions to that, okay? So make sure that you have the permission. The next is entrance and exit video monitoring, okay? So if you have cameras, you need to make sure that they're focused only on the entry and exit doors and are not focused on any of the areas where the residents gather. If you have cameras outside, um, in outdoor areas, the areas need to be accessible by both your residents and the public, such as driveway and walkways, if the intent is for security and safety reasons. Um, it needs to be in an area that is not commonly used by the residents, and it cannot be, or it can be used in designated smoking areas under the following conditions. If a resident needs supervision for smoking, you can have a video monitoring, but it does not replace your supervision and monitoring responsibilities. So therefore, a staff person needs to watch the video monitor when the residents are using the smoking area, and the video camera needs to be clearly visible to the residents. but the video monitor needs to be in a place that is not viewable by the public on a typical area. And also, if a resident requests recording video when they are in a sleeping area, it can only be installed in a resident's sleeping area at their request or within their parameters. You must have permission of their roommate if there is one. It needs to be safe, and you need to continue to check in at least quarterly to verify that monitoring is still wanted and remove it promptly if asked. Audio monitoring can only the resident or their court appointed guardian or attorney in fact can request and give consent. If it is requested by the guardian or the representative, they need to have a court order, and you must obtain a copy of the court order and keep the court order and the consent in the resident's records. Okay. Electronic monitoring. You cannot refuse to admit or discharge a resident due to electronic monitoring. You cannot release any audio or video monitoring except to those authorized or required by law. And you must remove any equipment that does not follow the requirements in the WAC and RCWs. Allowable electronic monitoring includes motion sensor alerts, floor pressure sensors, and a GPS device with some exceptions. And it also must be included in the negotiated care plan prior to using it in your residence bedrooms. Okay. Your home maintenance, you need to make sure that the home is kept in good repair and the condition is safe and sanitary. All outdoor space is safe and usable. Household items and furnishings need to be safe and usable. And then um, the home systems need to be functioning and safe. Okay. All toxic and hazardous materials are locked and in original containers. Your rapid access for your staff to any bedroom, toilet room, shower room, closet, or other rooms occupied by a resident. All firearms are locked and only accessible to authorized persons. And then the home must be free from rodents, insects, and other vermin. So, in summary, we've discussed several resources that have been included for you throughout the module. So go back and watch the other videos and read the other information. Make sure that if you have anything to add about what you learned in this module. So we talked about what is required for setting up your home, the postings that are required and where they must be located, how to protect your residents from hazards, and exterior physical environment requirements. Okay, so let's test our knowledge. The resident records are confidential and accessible to authorized individuals. True or false? The answer is true. If you use the checklist, you will cover all requirements and be ready for the inspection. True or false? That is true. And then the hot water temperature must not exceed 140 degrees. That is false. It must not exceed 120 degrees. Okay. So now get ready for the next module. Read module 6A and be ready for it. Thank you very much.